So welcome to today's Meet the Expert. Today we have Meshell Baker, who is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She is a coach for Shifco. She's one of the first coaches that we tapped, and she coaches on marketing and authentic demand generation. Specifically, how do you grow your business? How do you get more awareness? How do you get more clients? In addition to that, she is also a renowned speaker. If you've never heard her speak, you do not know what you're missing. She literally will have the room levitating when she is on stage. And she has just some special sauce in her to help people unlock their power, to find that super power that's in them. So Meshell, kick us off and tell us a little bit about you and the value you provide. And then we'll go through some questions that I have and see what other questions our guests have today.
Yes, thank you for that fabulous introduction. I am Meshell Baker, the Chief Confidence Igniter. I am super passionate about igniting confidence. And what that means is I help individual teams and organizations take the perception of chaos and turn it into a profitable confidence. And what the outcomes that they receive when they work with me are they experience a radical responsibility, right? If you guys have seen the workplace, there's not a lot of people who want to be responsible. So getting that radical responsibility, creative collaboration, and that turns into unprecedented productivity, which again is translated into profits. So for me, it's fun, right? Where people see challenges, I see opportunities. Where they see difficulties and problems, I see unlimited possibility in helping people to take those perceptions and turn them into the profitable confidence that there's nothing that's impossible. It delights me. I can't even explain how much it delights me.
So you work with teams and organizations to help them unlock their confidence, to help them be more productive, to step more into a bigger version of themselves. Is that a good
Yes,
summary, Michelle?
exactly. That's a great summary.
One of the questions I love to ask is, you've told us about the value you provide. Tell us a little bit more about why you started your business. What's the purpose behind the work that you do?
Oh, great question. So my purpose is just quick synopsis as possible. I come from a challenging background, urban area. I was incarcerated when I was 20. So I immediately turned around and became a viable citizen, right? I went out and worked. I learned that I was an incredible worker and I enjoy delivering excellence at work. That was something that caused me to have confidence in myself, and it helped me to bypass challenges, right? At the workplace. So saying that was, I was able to acquire, promotions and get degrees and all these things. And I found that I was doing the requisite of acquiring and accumulating and accolades. So everything that I did was external. So although I was incredibly successful, I still felt like an imposter. I felt like if people found out, if they knew, if I made a mistake. So there was that underlying fear in me. And what I saw that other people didn't necessarily know how to keep that internal. So I worked on teams and organizations where people struggled and they allowed their struggle to dictate how they operated at work. That did not necessarily cause me to not perform. So once I had the opportunity to step out of corporate and create a business, I immediately thought about what people often ask me is, how do you stay positive? How do you continue to perform? And so I was able to step into what became true self, right? I was able to just honestly tell people and be authentic and still be valuable. What most people don't understand is how to be authentic, to have a difficult day and still perform well at work. They don't understand how to leave, how to have a conversation about something that's difficult and challenging and not allow it to impact their productivity. So that's one of the things that I did. Was I come in and I absolutely adore helping individuals, especially employees and leaders, to see where there's an opportunity for you to change the way you're thinking about your circumstances and still create incredible outcomes and be valuable and viable, and not just work, but in your life.
So you basically you use success to overcome that part of you that felt like you weren't good enough, and then
Yes.
you realized you needed that success to feel good enough, and then you began the process of unpacking that, where you really sourced your value and your worth internally, and then
Yes.
the tools along the way, now you help other people do the same for themselves.
Exactly, exactly. So what I discovered in all of that was that most of the population is seeking external ways to feel good about themselves, and those are finite. So, how do you source infinite value, self worth, and self confidence? It's different from what we're taught or what we see or what's the majority of the guidance that's given, and it's absolutely changes the way you operate at work. So when you are externally driven, you actually are more fear-based as an employee or a leader. Your fear is making a mistake. Your fear is getting fired. Your fear is that other people aren't going to like you or aren't going to like your ideas. So it holds you back from the complete capacity and the unlimited potential you have as an individual to be valuable to that organization or that team or to your career or business, right? Or employees. And so when people are able to actually step in and decide who do you want to be instead of just what do you want to have, that's when they become, unlimited in their value.
Oh, I love that. And Meshell, we talked a minute ago about that you're a coach for Shipco, and you specifically coach on the demand generation pathway, which basically means getting more clients. Talk a little bit about the confidence struggle that it takes when somebody's trying to grow a business, and talk about some of the ways that you've overcome that, where no matter what the results are, you're able to power up and keep going.
Yes. Oh my, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, I went through it myself. Is that initially you have this success. So many people who start a business, they come from a background, either they were let go, but they start with the intention that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create something amazing. And especially socially driven, heart-based entrepreneurs, they are doing something that they're passionate about, something they have a vision, this belief. Oh man, it's so strong. It's beautiful, right? And then they go out and they start looking for clients, or right, they hit a challenge in a wall and it falls apart, because the traditional way of doing business, everything is based on metrics and things that are external. I have clients, I have money, I'm great. Where when you build that heart-based business, the way you actually go seek out to do business, it's from the heart, right? I tell people, there's no solopreneur in the world who's successful if they don't have clients, what we call fanatics, or those raving fan clients. Those are clients who love you, right? They adore you. They love working with you. They love talking about you. They love telling other people about you. And the only way to keep a sustained business is to have those. Well, you cannot do activities that you don't like, you can't stand, you're begrudging, you're frustrated with. Think of it. You cannot get an apple tree from an orange seed. So in business, you cannot do activities that are negative in nature. When you think about them, you negate them. You're like, oh God, I have to do this. Oh God, I can't believe I have to call this person. Oh my God. And think you're going to end up with a bunch of clients that love you. And think that you're going to end up with a bunch of activities and outcomes and businesses and conferences and places you're going to speak where you are adored, where you're being paid well. Your first set of thoughts is getting your energy aligned to the belief that got you started. So that practice every day. Why did I start? Simon Sinek, famous. Start with why. Think about it. If you start every day with why, if you start every call with why, if you start every outreach with why, your outcomes would be greatly different. So it's that slowing down, right? Your input, your intake, the things, the activities, so that it expands your outreach.
I love that. And kind of springboarding off of that, again, this building of a business is not an easy thing to do. It's rewarding, but it's not easy. How do you stay motivated? What motivates you?
The why. So I literally, as soon as I open my eyes every day, I literally say thank you. I get to be a gift or a blessing. One of the words I replace in my language, if you've listened to me, you have not heard me say have to. So I replace that with get to, because what it does is it reminds me that it's a gift, right? It reminds me that I'm, to be grateful that it reminds me that I have intentionally made the choice. No one is making me. So it takes away that obligation, which often leads to what obligation generally just leads to frustration. And then it's that daily. So, evolving, remembering that it's a lesson. So one of the things that I remind myself is that everything is a lesson or a blessing, right? It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And that takes a while to switch, because when you get when you hit that dip as a solopreneur, you are either, fulfilling on the business that you have, or you're attempting to generate leads. So Terry, if you've never watched any of your videos, she talks about this time fulcrum when you start out. So you're going to have this wavering income. And what happens to most entrepreneurs is their energy, their emotions, their belief wavers with the income. And what keeps you successful and what keeps me going is to keep my energy, my belief, my confidence at the level that all will be well. It's always working in my favor. Everything is going to work out as the vision I've been given to fulfill. And that is the hardest thing for not just the entrepreneur, any adult human being to do. I call it emotional mastery.
I love that. So you've trained yourself to focus on the good, to focus on being grateful, to look for opportunities rather than to focus on what's wrong. How long did it take you to train your mind to do that?
Oh, dear God, really? We are still being trained. So the interesting thing is, you want to say how long, there's a statement I tell people, there is no there. So this is no longer so this is the difference between the finite, where there's an end. This is infinite. I will be in training for the duration of being an entrepreneur and a human being. It's a daily thing. So I don't look at when I get to stop doing this, or when I magically get to a place where it's all going to be well. Instead, I've incorporated into a way of being. It's just who I am. And it does. So I don't look for the end date. I just look to habituate. Right. And that's what I teach people. Stop looking for an end date. There's no magical place where you arrive where you're going to have fairies riding unicorns sitting on the rainbow sparking pixie dust. Right. It's not going to happen. Right. We don't get a break. When you habituate it, it just becomes a way of being. And Terry, your way of saying it is you can't not do it. And once you can't not do it, then it's no longer a worry. And the success will immediately attach to the fact that you've integrated it into your identity, and it's a way of being.
That's excellent. I'm going to shift gears for just 1 second. And for those of you that are listening in, you're going to get a chance here in a few minutes. I got a couple more questions for Meshell, and then you guys will have a chance to ask one. One of the things that I think is really important is to focus on the value that you're providing to your customers while you're talking about the value to potential new customers. So when you're working with your customers, how do you ensure that you meet their needs and provide a solution to their challenges so that that value perception is always high?
Yeah, great question. And this evolved over time, and having baseline assessments. So there's assessment conversations, assessment tools. You always want to find the baseline so that everybody agrees this is where we started. And then you have the end goal. This is the desired outcome. And then the milestones, the check-ins, right? Especially with the work I'm doing, because a lot of it is mindset and behavioral. It requires that, because when you're going through that transformation of developing someone from, uninspired to an uninspired performer to someone who's now delivering unprecedented results, they are going to question the process, because you in that journey, you are doing activities that you're not necessarily seeing the outcomes from yet. That is belief. That's confidence in its essence. You are doing things consistently to build a habit so that you can continue to have expansive and explosive results over time, because it becomes part of your identity. So the check-ins and the milestones are great, are very important in supporting them in that process of their transformation.
Oh, that's super. And I've got one more question for you, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Um, if those of you that are listening today aren't following Meshell on social media, I would encourage you to do that. Meshell is everywhere. She's like the Energizer Bunny, and her videos and her messages are inspirational. And she is constantly out there in building brand awareness. So what's your secret, Meshell, to the way that you grow your business so that you can make a bigger impact in the world?
Yeah, great question. I recently saw a quote by Brian Tracy that really reminded me. He stated, and I'm not going to say it exactly, I just remember the essence of it. He always have more people to contact than you have time for. Right. And I know you've mentioned it, and one of my other mentors have mentioned it also. And that's the reminder, right? The mind, the ego wants to go, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have enough time. This is over. So there's this lack of scarcity that's naturally an affinity for a human being, right? Our ego wants to control everything. Right. But what happens is, in order to tap into the mind with them and everybody's mind on this call, everybody listening, we are infinite, unending, and unlimited in the capability of what our mind will allow us to do. To tap into it, you start to align, and you start to take what Terry has termed inspired actions. So you begin to do the things that don't necessarily make sense, and will have the greatest outcome, the biggest bang for your buck. So consistently stopping throughout the day and aligning myself to what is the next action. And sometimes it's not on the list. Sometimes it's somebody I haven't thought of. And I promise you, every day I am blessed with a phone call or a text or an email that surprises me. That is a gift, because of the alignment with the purpose and what the original vision of why. So getting yourself aligned. Okay, I remind you, I said earlier, you cannot get an apple tree from an orange seed. So when you started your why, that was to build an orchard, right? So you must align your activities to the building of that orchard, instead of the desperation of, I got to get clients, I got to pay bills. And that is one of the most difficult things to do. So lead consistent daily practices of lead generation. If I was to sum it up in one term, that consistency of planting and nurturing, you always have a harvest. So I'm not a hunter. I don't go out there to seek to kill, to take. It's a reciprocal process of lead building and nurturing.
And does that include relationship building with a network and
Yes.
And key people that are influencers in the space that you operate in?
Yes, yes. So definitely following up, having places where I'm consistently building relationships. So there's certain online organizations that you stay with. You find the places where you can best build your relationships and get to know people, and have those one-off calls on the side. Some in-person organizations where I can go and build relationships. And it's better to have a few where you actually are known, and you can become like renowned, and you become an expert in whatever your offering is, versus to spread yourself too thin and feel that overwhelm. And again, remembering that it's an interesting principle to switch the mind, and to remember that you always want to have more than you're able to actually fulfill or follow up with. Because and then you stay aligned to what is the actual activity that's moving me forward energetically, then you'll know how to select. That helps you to start to be disciplined about how to select how and who to move forward with.
So I heard align your energy and align the activities to things that you enjoy, focus on nurturing and building relationships. And third is always have more people to be following up on than you have time.
Yes, Yes. And that's again goes back to the practices, because the average person is going to start to feel bad that they're not following up. Like they have a stack of business cards. I went through, oh my God, I suck. I didn't get. Nope. You just go through the cards. It's an amazing exercise that any incredibly successful entrepreneur will tell you. I mean, the more success you see a person has, the more failures, the more setbacks, the more, mistakes they've made. Success is an equivalent. It's an exchange. You cannot have great success without great failure. It's just impossible.
Love that. So I'm going to open up the call for questions, and the two areas that I can tell you emphatically Meshell is going to have insights on is how do you grow your business? How do you grow awareness? But also, how do you get your mindset focused on where you're going rather than what you fear? So who has the first question for Meshell?
Can I go? Oh, go ahead, Paul.
No, go ahead, Mike. You spoke first. Go ahead.
That's just because I got a loud mouth. So when you say have more people to contact than you have time for, how do you go about doing that? I mean, I do a lot of in-person networking, but I can't say that, and I have more people to contact than I have time for. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, great question. When you do in-person networking and you meet people, are you gathering business cards? How are you, this is just an example. Generally, most people go network, or they go to a conference, or they go to an event, and you're introducing yourself to all these people. Do you follow up with 100% of all the people that you meet?
A lot of the places that the short answer is no. I mean, I do collect business cards. And in a lot of the places, since I've been in Kansas City a pretty long time, I was a reporter for a long time. I tend to know a lot of people. Seems like a lot of the people that I end up running into are people I know. So I don't need to gather their business cards. It's just trying to remain on their radar screen because they're in the nonprofit world. So I don't, anyway, I'm just kind of struggling with how do you get more people than.
Yeah, well, great. I love your answer. And you did answer. You said that, no, I don't follow up with 100% of the people, right? So that's an example of you've met more people than you're actually able to follow up with. One of the things, do you, the people that you already know, are you asking them for recommendations and referrals? Are you asking them to make introductions on your behalf? Because once you start reaching out to people you already know, where you have established as an expert, right, where they actually know your value and they start making introductions, you will immediately, right, because once you start following up and getting people on your calendar, and you're doing introductions, and you're sending out information to these different people, and you're getting leads and proposals, you will immediately start to have an overflow and have more than you actually are capable of following up with. So I would say, I encourage you, if you're not doing that, to start inquiring about introductions.
And statistically, it takes about 3 good conversations to get a qualified lead. And then it typically takes 3 to 10 qualified leads to get a customer. So that's a lot of conversations, whether it's in networking groups, or whether you're meeting people online, or whether you're asking for referrals. It does require a lot of conversations. And Meshell and I practice a technique called net weaving. And what net weaving is finding ways to connect with our network through serving them in that era of reciprocity. And that when I reach out and say, hey, Mike, here's somebody that I can introduce you to, I'm not looking for anything in return, but I've now built a relationship with you because I've given you something of value.
Did I answer your question, Mike, or did you have additional?
No, I'll let Paul jump in. I don't want to hog the whole conversation.
Okay, Paul.
All right. Hey, Meshell, I love your energy. Love your story.
You.
I bet there's a lot more to that story that would be interesting to hear. you talked a little bit about your own journey, but if you could, I'd love if maybe you could zoom in a little bit on, you mentioned that your transition from corporate, to being a solopreneur. Not sure how long ago that was, but I imagine, your learning curve was extremely steep for that first year. I don't know if you had a coach. You probably didn't have a Meshell. You were your Meshell. So I'd just love to hear more about what that, first year was like, what some of your key learnings were on that journey, and, anything you would do differently with, the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was 10 years ago, actually 2014, so it's 10 years. And it was, the transition came about as an opportunity. I left corporate because I had stepped into a caregiving role for my disabled sister. And I was actually intending to look for another corporate sales job. I was an executive biotech sales rep at the time. And I got invited to a networking meeting, and someone spoke about vision versus goals. And I realized why I was completely miserable, even though I had all these successes, because I was chasing goals. I was acquiring and achieving all these things, and I would immediately get depressed once I got it. Once I got to promotion, I didn't feel anything else. I was like, so then I kept creating things to chase, but then I got tired of chase. And then I remembered the vision of who I was. When I was 13, I had 3 businesses. And through things that had transpired in my household, it didn't bode well for me in that situation. And so I immediately remembered that's who I wanted to be, an entrepreneur. So I followed that. And yes, I did have a coach. So right out the gate, I had a coach and a mentor, the thing that she had. And that helped me. What I discovered and what I encourage people is to vet your coaches, right? So my first coach was great. The next ones that followed suit, not necessarily, because I was looking at them to be the solution. And what I was learning is that they were more inclined to have people on a coaching contract versus to help me to habituate and become something, so that, their goal was not to help me transform. It was to get a client on a contract. And I did that for years. It took me years to figure that out, and so that's why I'm the way I am. My goal is that you fire me. Once I'm done, you will have the habit of believing in yourself, right? In your organization, in your team, as an individual, because then you become unstoppable. And confidence is what I believe and what I've seen.
Great advice.
Was that helpful?
Yeah, very. Thank you, Meshell.
Other questions? That was a great one too.
I have a question for Meshell. This is on the mindset category. So can you give us an example of a pivot that you would do when you recognize that you're sourcing validation externally? Because no matter how the habit is, I would imagine, I know it is true for me, that you catch yourself where you've put a little bit too much importance on that external validation. Once you catch yourself, what would be your process, exercise, or a way to pivot from that?
Yeah, great question. And yes, so what I've come to realize is that I will always have the propensity to seek outward affirmation. It's my underlying way I was how I was groomed and grew up. So the consistent work and practices and participating in external programming. That's one of the reasons I love ShiftCo, is because ShiftCo always has external programming, right? So one of the things that we do at ShiftCo is we empower entrepreneurs to understand they build up their business. Your business only grows as much as you grow, right? And so the personal, the business, and the leadership are it's a three-legged stool that we help entrepreneurs to build. So one of the things I recognize is staying aligned with the building. Like if I build anything one side up too much, it starts to tip like any three-legged stool would. And so staying connected with people, knowing like I am an extrovert, so staying connected with other groups where I'm consistently participating with other people is the way I immediately have conversations. Once I denote that something is not moving in the direction I wanted to over a period of time, I reach out, right? Because I know that my thinking is blocking it. It's only my perception that is stopping for me to deliver the outcomes and begin to put something in place and work it. And then knowing that maybe if I had worked it for a period of time and it doesn't work, then you work something else. And it's always holding the belief that no matter what I'm doing, I will find a way. Everything is figure outable.
I love that. Figure outable. All
It's a
right.
great book.
Yeah, I love that. Other questions?
So, Meshell, I think one of the areas that I see, I work with a lot of startups, both in Shifco and in my business, and people sort of forget the demand generation side. And I see people wanting to solve everything with marketing, but not
Yes.
willing to do the work on the demand side that's necessary. What have you found? How do you diagnose those kind of problems and help people get through that?
So I heard you say, how have I found to diagnose? I think I missed a word or two in there.
Yeah, how do you help people diagnose that?
Demand generation.
Yeah, that they have a demand generation versus a marketing problem,
Yes.
and get motivated to work on it.
Yes. So it will, so first, it's either someone is either recommended to me because they know that they know someone who is trusted, knows me and done work with me, or is a colleague. They'll see it in someone else they're working with, for example, and then they get introduced. Hey, I think you benefit from a conversation with Meshell, right? And so then it's that initial conversation of what is the desired outcome. So I always begin with the end in mind when I'm having a conversation with someone about themselves or their team, or, you know, an employee or a team member. What is the desired outcome and what is not? So what is the hang up or the hiccup? What is not actually happening to get to that outcome? And then it's at that point, the conversation is, now we got to an assessing needs to happen. How do we assess where they are and what skills they actually have that can be utilized if additional training or coaching, or sometimes, you know, unfortunately, we know in business, it's not a fit, right? That person is just not a fit for the role, and where else what other skills that they have that can be utilized. So that's generally what has to happen on the front end is, you know, having a deeper conversation about the desired outcome and what's been transpiring to see what that gap is, and then look at the individual where they fit and if they can fill the gap. And if not, then what needs to happen next. Did that answer your question?
Oh, sorry. Could you explain the difference between demand generation versus marketing?
So yeah, I don't know, Kim. So I know marketing is, you know, that's promoting a product. So marketing looks at how they're going to do it in various ways. If it's the emails or social impact or how they imprint. So it's what people see, it's marketed. So when you see an advertisement, that's marketing. Lead demand generation is actually once somebody markets, sometimes they get inbound. The goal for marketing is what I'm understanding is they're getting inbound leads. So the people are contacting and filling out forms. The lead generation is going to now follow up and to assess whether this lead is an actual prospect is the next step.
And I would add one other thing. Demand generation is when you have potential buyers coming to you on a regular basis. So that the word demand is really important. That's the difference between demand generation and lead generation is you have demand for what you do. And it does require some marketing, and Kim's an expert in that. But as Meshell said, it also requires focus and systems and thinking through how do I build a relationship with this potential person so that they ultimately will buy from me if I'm the best person to serve them.
Yeah, because I've never really, I've never heard of the dichotomy, I guess, between marketing and demand generation. I've never really heard that term that way. I mean, I thought marketing was kind of like demand generation. You're trying to get people to buy from you or contract with you.
And that get part, it's really and I would encourage you to view the value wins lesson that's coming up next week, because that's the system that we teach all of our members to generate demand. So what that means is I'm always growing my friends. I'm always growing awareness. So more and more people know me. And then I'm building relationships with some of those folks, and they're following me. And then eventually they're now coming to me as a lead. And that's a system more so than it is the marketing techniques. It's thinking of it and systematizing it.
Yeah.
Right. Let me give you an example that's happening with one of my clients now. Is we've built our website. We're doing some very exciting things in terms of blogs and social media and Google AdWords. And they're getting leads, but nobody's following up on them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nobody's growing the relationships necessary to turn those into business. And they can't understand it. They think it's all, well, marketing should be working, but they have to follow up on those leads. And we have the numbers to actually show that. You know, our job is to get somebody to your website and get them to do something, but then you have to do something too on the sales side. And I don't think people understand that in some cases.
I agree totally, Kim.
Yeah.
It's almost like the business card is the marketing, the handing it out is the demand generation.
Yeah.
In a very simple, simplistic kind of.
Yeah. And
And
that's,
they have to work
so-
together extremely well. Right?
Yeah. So, yeah. And what you just described, Kim's, can often be that whole confidence and mindset, right? People who are the people who are confident enough to go make those phone calls and do the follow, right? So there's what I hear is there's an avoidance. Like, you know, they have the leads, but then nobody's actually being accountable or responsible to step in and convert them. And having, you know, so being able to have that conversation and to coach people along, that there's an actual way to do it where it's seamless, you can actually enjoy it. It's not like, you know, because people think of that as sales, and then when somebody's not necessarily a seller, they'll start to freak out, right? They start to have that affinity, like, oh, I don't like sales, I don't like doing that, I don't want to bother people. So that's where the authentic demand generation work that I've been able to do with Terry and other organizations, I actually enjoy.
Excellent. Okay, we have time for one more question. Anybody else have one more question?
Do you have one, Paul?
No, I'm good. Go ahead, Mike.
So what do you think? Well, here's my real curveball to you guys, since so, you know, I'm a solopreneur, limited revenue. You know, Claire does operational support and she also does coaching. So what I'm trying to figure out is, I mean, I've got a pretty good idea who my key customer are. I mean, I've got some avatars. I need to figure out whether I need a coach or I need Claire from an operational standpoint, because I can't really afford both.
Yeah, so
So do I need a coach, or do I need someone to help me execute on my plan?
So Mike, the easiest way for you to answer that question is what we call the fulcrum. And there's multiple fulcrums when you're building a business, but the fulcrum that you're at is called the time fulcrum. And the time fulcrum is supply and demand. If I have enough demand, but my supply side, my operations are weak, then you need somebody like Claire to help you with the operations infrastructure. If I need supply and demand, then something like Shiftco that actually is able to work on both sides of those equation is where you would want to focus. So it really is, if that seesaw is tilted and you're like, no, I've got the demand cranking, I need to really work on the supply side, then I would say hire a consultant to help you with that infrastructure. If you feel like it's both, then I feel like you need a coach that's an expert in both sides of that equation. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah. I just need to figure out you know, where I'm at. I mean, I know where I'm at, but I mean, just when I look at the fulcrum, I mean, you know, it's not like, you know, I don't have the, you know, I do it, like I said, I mean, I do a ton of in-person networking. I'm out having coffees and going to events all the time. I mean, that's because I'm a reporter. I was a reporter. I don't mind going places. It's just, I'm having a hard time, you know, I don't have people beating down my door. You know, I have a lot of good, you know, like when Terry, when you said, hey, that, you know, I mean, when I describe what I do, people nod their heads like, oh yeah, that's much needed. But, you know, one person I talked to, it's kind of like, I think she called it like Hollywood syndrome or something like that, where everybody tells you you're great, but no one wants to hire you. I mean, so I have a lot of people, you know, tell me, hey, that's a great idea, you know, but I still don't have, you know, I have clients, but I don't have people beating down my door.
Yeah. And that beating down the door, that demand, there's three components in creating the balance of that fulcrum. We call it FD squared. So it's fit, making sure the business fits you. It clearly does that, Mike. I can tell based on your passion. Second is differentiation. And that's really finding the way that you talk about your business that attracts people, not just where they shake their head like, oh yeah, that's cool, but that attracts them. And then third is a demand generation system that is always running, so that you're always growing awareness and it doesn't require you to go to a networking event each week. So those three things are how you get those two things in balance: fit, differentiation, and demand.
I mean, demand generation is really what I need.
Yeah. And then the operation. So the funny thing about what you're saying is when we work with a member and we help them on the demand generation side, then very quickly we got to go over and we got to work on the operation side. That's why we partner with people like Claire to help with that. So, you know, you're going to have to address both of them. You just got to figure out which one you're going to start with. And it's like climbing a rock. You know, I can't just jump up to the top of the rock. I've got to put my one arm up and then I got to put my other arm up. Well, that's demand, supply, demand, supply. So you'll eventually have to crack both of them. You got to figure out which one you want to start with.
Right. And again, I mean, some of it's kind of two sides of the same coin because I mean, like with Claire, I mean, a lot of the stuff that they'll do on operation side is they'll automate a lot of things. So that helps drive demand. So you know, there's a lot of automation that can go into giving me more time to do more, you know, more things than just, you know, updating my HubSpot every day.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, good. Well, thank you, everybody. And I just want to remind everybody, we've got 2 more events coming up. There's usually about 3 events a month. On April 23rd, we're covering Value Wins. That's our demand generation system. That's the methodology we teach our members for how you create that constant attraction where people are coming to you. And then Pure Confidence on May 9th, which is really about what Meshell said. How do you disconnect from needing external validation to feel confident on the inside? So Meshell, I want to thank you so much for being here today and answering these questions and just being an amazing coach for us and a pillar of our community. It's an absolute joy to work side by side with you. And I really appreciate you being on here today.
Yeah, this was incredible. Thank you all for your questions and the engagement. I look forward to connecting with you on social or in person, right? So
awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.